Hi, my name is Jeremy Gonzalez. I grew up in a small rural community in northeastern New Mexico called Wagon Mound. I grew up a family of four, so my father, my mother, my sister, who's 3 years older than I, and myself. Growing up, we were an extremely close, tight-knit family. There was a lot of love in the family, and everything we did together as a family. Parents were great providers, and we loved it. Growing up in the country on my father's side of the family, they had a ranch, so any spare moment that we had in our schedule was spent on the ranch. My mother worked for the schools. She was a bus driver and a teacher, but she spent many hours in the school filling various roles. She was loved there, loved by the students, loved by the staff, and I just remember anytime a teacher was going to be out, I remember that they always requested my mom to fill in because she just had a good rapport with the staff and with the school, with the students. So in the summer of 1993, there was a revival at my Baptist church. I felt a calling, I felt a nudging when there was an altar call at the end of one of the services one day, and I just, though I didn't fully recognize it at the time, certainly now know that it was the Holy Spirit nudging me, and I went in, and that's where I accepted Christ for the first time. And again, I didn't fully recognize and understand and appreciate it, but I do know that it was the Holy Spirit, and there was that nudge, and I did give my life to Christ then. Later that fall of '93, and my parents began having marital problems. Although they did a good job of trying to shield my sister and I from it, we could sense the tension, and we knew that there were issues going on. We were concerned, but really the thought of my parents separating or getting divorced never really came to the forefront. I just, in my mind, I just thought, they were having marital issues, and it's an issue that's going to get resolved. Again, we were a tight-knit family. My father did not have a relationship with Christ. I could tell was struggling, and really didn't have anybody to talk to, so I could see that weighing on him heavily. But again, at that young age, it's not that I didn't care, but at 13 years old, you have other things on your mind, and I was a basketball player, and my life kind of revolved around basketball, and that's all I was concerned about at the time. Well, fast forward a few months to Thursday, May 12th, 1994. I'd come home from basketball practice, and my sister had been out of the house that day as well. And it was 8 or 9 o'clock that night, and my dad was laying down on the sofa, which was weird, and I don't recall that ever happening before, ever. I asked what was going on, and he indicated that he and my mother had been in an argument. The next morning, got up, normal routine. I went to school, and my mother happened to be substituting for our math teacher that day, our middle school math teacher. The bell rang, and we proceeded to lunch. And I remember my mom and all of the students walking out at the same time. And our class was headed up to the cafeteria. And I remember my mom walking down the corridor. She was going to run home for lunch. I proceeded to class after lunch, and shortly after class started, I was summoned to the front office, and that day happened to be the day that we were supposed to turn in our school-issued basketball uniforms, and I had forgotten mine. So as they called me to the front office, which that definitely wasn't a regular occurrence, in my mind I thought I forgot my uniform, and they're calling me to ask me why I forgot it or when I'm going to be turning it in. And as I neared the front office, I could hear my sister screaming and crying. I took off sprinting to the front office, and I had an uncle that was waiting there at the front office, and it was, why is he here? And so I went over, and in that moment, his exact words were, "Your mom and dad shot themselves," and your mom is dead. So in that moment, not knowing what was going on, you know, your whole world speeds up and slows down at the same time, if that makes sense. Certainly everything is turned upside down. We went to my grandmother's house who lived, literally just across from the school. And as we made sense of things, we learned that my father had shot and killed my mom and shot himself, but he survived. So again, a range of emotions. So over the next few days, we buried my mother, and as we tried to make sense of what was to be and what was going on, my sister and I just really leaned on each other, and looking back on it now, it was no accident in my mind that just a few months before that happened, I had accepted Christ in my life, because I knew I had that in my life, and I knew, as upside down as our world was, I knew that everything was going to be okay. I knew that life was going to look absolutely different, but I also knew that everything was going to be okay, as odd as that sounds, at that young age, and having gone through what we went through. So what we later learned was, when we all assumed that my father had gone to work that morning, he had actually never gone to work that morning. He went over to my uncle's house, his brother-in-law, who wasn't home at the time, and he kind of just hung out there and went back to the house, knowing that my mom would be coming home for lunch. So conceivably, he knew what he was going to do. My father ended up getting sentenced to 7 years in the New Mexico State Prison, where he served approximately 3 and was released. So my sister and I having questions. Of course, she had moved on to college already, and I was a junior in high school. We elected to go meet with my father, who was in prison at the time, just for clarification, and really just to get an understanding directly from him. He indicated that he did not remember exactly what happened that day. He did note that Satan had entered his life. That was the last time that I've had contact with my father, which was springtime of 1997. From my personal perspective, I choose to think that I lost both of my parents on that day, because although he's still alive, he's not the father that I knew. I absolutely still, I pray for my mother and pray for her, and I look forward to the day that we meet again. I knew my mother for 13 short years, and I always tell everybody that although it was 13 short years, with my mother specifically, I felt like I was loved enough for a lifetime.